So last week we talked about Azor Ahai and the prince that was promised, and this week we're going to go through a brief overview of the possible candidates and their chances of being Azor Ahai at the end of the story. We're going to discuss the requirements I covered in the last video, so if you haven't seen that yet, go check it out first, because I'm not going to waste time re-explaining everything. There's going to be some mild spoilers for the books, however, so if that bugs you, I suggest checking out now. Okay, so if I'm honest, the candidates for Azor Ahai are virtually anyone and everyone, given how vague prophecies are in George's universe, but let's take a look at some of the most popular theories. First off, Stannis Baratheon. Is he a prince? Not really. King, arguably, and maybe technically a prince when Robert was king, if you want to stretch the meaning of the word a bit, but prince does not really describe him. Blood of the dragon? Absolutely. His grandmother was a Targaryen. Born amidst salt and smoke? It's vague, but Melisandre made this arguably happen herself in a very forced way. And the bleeding star is also vague, and Melisandre says the meteor was the bleeding star, which happened right after her little anointing of Stannis as Azor Ahai. Honestly, I know Stannis fans want him to truly be Azor Ahai, but the chances are highly unlikely. For one, it would be a boring choice from a narrative standpoint, especially when the books have pointed out numerous times that he's an artificial Azor Ahai. Mel keeps conspiring to make him look like Azor Ahai and even has convinced herself of it, but the Lightbringer she gave him is an illusion, and the only reason he fulfills most of the prophecies is because Mel contrived it herself. Sorry guys, Stannis is one of the most unlikely candidates for Azor Ahai. Shireen, his daughter, would be a more likely candidate than Stannis. She's at least actually a princess, but, you know, the show killed her off, so it's probably not it. Another popular theory is Daenerys Targaryen, which matches up a lot more. First off, she's an actual princess, and George making sure that we know the prince that was promised could be a woman makes it even more likely that it's her. And of course, she's a Targaryen and the mother of dragons, making her the blood of the dragon in multiple ways. And let's not forget this line from the books said by Melisandre to Jon Snow. When the red star bleeds and the darkness gathers, Azor Ahai shall be born amidst smoke and salt to wake dragons out of stone. That describes Dany burning herself alive to wake the petrified dragon eggs to a T, and the bleeding star meteor fell right after she did it. Every single sign we know of points to Dany pretty obviously. She easily fits all the criteria, but from a narrative standpoint, some could say that's too easy. Next, let's tackle a recent theory made popular by MatPat of Film Theory. You can watch the video by clicking here if you're not familiar with it. Do that, then come back. The guy makes good, entertaining stuff. But I will sum up things just in case you decided not to do that. I know it's a lot longer than my videos. Basically, MatPat makes the case for Jorah Mormont being the true Azor Ahai, and honestly, I don't buy it. He fits virtually none of the criteria in any reasonable way. Is he a prince? No, not even remotely, not even figuratively in any way. Is he the blood of the dragon? No, he's close to Dany, definitely, but he's not related to her or even married to her, so not even by technicality is he blood of the dragon, and the idea of him killing Dany, counting as him having the blood of the dragon, is a gigantic stretch. You can make an argument that his connection with Dany could make him the figurative blood of the dragon, but it's really reaching. Born amidst salt and smoke? You could make the argument that he became a new person when he saw Dany self-immolate, so that one isn't really an issue. That makes sense, and that event goes hand in hand with the bleeding star bit. But still, that said, Jorah doesn't fit half of the 4 prophetic requirements, and he's far from as major a character in the books as he is in the show. And a major problem with MatPat's video is that it uses show-only events for this theory. Jorah is the least likely candidate with a popular theory behind him. But I'm not trying to be hard on MatPat. He admitted at the beginning of the video that it was a total tinfoil theory, and it is. And now I'm going to gloss over a couple less popular theories. If you're not a book reader, this part won't make much sense to you, which is why I'm going to make this quick. First off, Victarion Greyjoy. Everything concerning Victarion is an incredible stretch and ignores the blood of the dragon requirement as well as the bleeding star. He's even less likely than Jorah, which is part of why his theory isn't as popular. Then there's Aegon, the probably fake nephew of Dany who supposedly survived the sacking of King's Landing. He fits all the criteria, but only if he's really Aegon, which there are multiple reasons to believe he isn't. Not the least of which being that, narratively, he comes out of nowhere for such an important person in the story that usurps Dany's right to the throne. But now, all the only book stuff aside, now we get to one of, if not the, most popular candidates for Azor Ahai. Jon Snow. This is where I get into possible book and show spoilers, but these are only theories. Continue watching if you like, but don't say I didn't warn you if this theory turns out to be true. So, Blood of the Dragon. If the R plus L equals J theory is correct, then yes. Which would also make him a prince, so there you go. Born amidst salt and smoke? This is where things get a bit iffy. People claim that the smoke coming from his wound when Jon was stabbed in the most recent book was the smoke from the prophecy, and one of the Night's Watchmen crying was the salt, and the heraldry of one of the men who was there when he was betrayed was in fact the bleeding star. And I like the idea that these signs are less obvious than we were led to believe, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't still a stretch. And that would basically count Jon out if it weren't for the other signs. In the books, when Mel attempts to see Azor Ahai in her magic visions, all she sees is Jon Snow. That's pretty blatant stuff. But it doesn't make those signs that people have been theorizing as the signs of Azor Ahai any more likely. But that doesn't mean that the actual signs won't come later in the books. If Jon truly is Azor Ahai, he'll need to, not be dead, and many people believe Melisandre will be the one to bring him back to life. And the things Mel constantly incorporates into her magic are fire and blood. The salt, the smoke, and the bleeding star could all come from Melisandre raising Jon from the dead and having him be very literally reborn. So that leaves Dany and Jon as the most likely candidates, which I suppose isn't the biggest surprise, but I'm not gonna contrive some big twist for you or anything. They may be the most obvious choices, but they're also simply the most likely choices from both an in-universe logical perspective and a narrative perspective. Which do you think it is? Let me know in the comments below. And also, I just want to reiterate from the last video that stabbing your wife is a really bad idea. Please don't do it.